Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter, talking with Daniel Gallagher. No stranger to this program, the Artemis II spaceflight is scheduled to end with a splashdown in the Pacific on Friday. Space exploration remains one of humanity's greatest scientific achievements, and we cannot overlook, it simply can't be overlooked, the Vatican's continued contribution to the field. Daniel is a professor of philosophy and literature at Ralston College, previously served as Latin secretary to Pope Benedict XVI and Francis. Daniel, great to speak with you again. How are you?
Dr. Peter, I'm doing very well. It's a pleasure to be back with you and your guests today.
I always look forward to it when we get to reconnect. I thoroughly enjoyed our last conversation. How are things going at Ralston right now?
Very well. We have a great cohort of students. We're a one-year intensive master's program, and we're in our fourth of 4 quarters of a very successful year. So I invite anybody to check us out, Ralston College on the web.
Very happy to hear all of that, and also very grateful for your salient contribution to space exploration in the cosmic liturgy. I want to ask about, before we talk about the Artemis II, I want to ask you about your memory, or at the very least your sentiment about the historical reality that America went to the moon first.
Yes, so I was extremely young, 2 years old, to be very honest, when Apollo 17, the last of the Apollo missions, returned from the moon and splashed down into the ocean. I have these trace memories of being placed in front of the television by my mother, insisting that I remember this for the rest of my lifetime. And I'm so gracious to her, grateful for her that she did that. So I only have these faint memories, but I became rather obsessed with looking at the sky and somewhat nostalgic about those Apollo missions and regretting that they had ended so suddenly. So this is extremely exciting for me. Lots of factors have added to the 50-some years that it's been since we've been back to the moon. And but now it's really a target in sight to put people back on the surface. So personally, I've always found this to be something that has enhanced my awe and reverence for creation, and something that I've really cultivated as part of my own meditation and prayer life.
Daniel, to step beyond the bounds of our conversation proper, could you please comment on the sheer social and global significance of America going to the moon with Apollo 17?
Yes, I think this is an extremely important question because once more we find ourselves in the midst of many factors which both provoke and inspire us, not just NASA and the United States, but the entire world to go to the moon. So quite honestly, we are in a race with China, and the current director, Jared Isaacman, had made it very clear that he had a mandate to speed up the pace of this program to get there and to get a moon base built as quickly as possible. Now, all of that might seem quite competitive and political, and indeed it is, but I'm still a firm believer that one of the ways in which humanity really can work towards a common goal, potentially, is with exploration, and especially with space exploration. The Apollo missions were also inspired by competitiveness with Russia, and we got there first. And I know that the current administration would like to get us there again before anybody else gets there to stay there. And that's all fine. I think, in fact, quite an inspiration and impetus. But I'm also a firm believer that science, when it comes to discovery, is something that pulls the human race together. Mm-hmm. And I feel that and sense that with countries and space programs, be it the European Space Program, India, and so on throughout the world.
To redirect then to the core of our conversation, is that one of the main reasons why the Church has always been a catalyst for scientific exploration?
I believe so. So Paul VI had sent various messages to the astronauts involved in the Apollo missions, and they did stress this sense of awe and reverence for God's creation. To the Apollo 11 astronauts, he sent among other things, an excerpt. In fact, it was a very long excerpt, the excerpt from Psalm 8 about praising God for the heavens and the earth. And I do think that the Church it's clear that the Church takes a clear interest. I happen to have read, I haven't looked into it, that in fact Pope Leo had called Buzz Aldrin, who was one of the 3 who was on the Apollo 11 mission, the first to reach the surface of the moon, I didn't get to read much into that, but it really fascinated me that Pope Leo would make that step, and it shows that the Church is still interested in following and encouraging exploration. Understanding what's around us and the world has always been a concern of the Church, and the history shows that, which I explained in my article, all the way back. I think even further back than I had explained in my article.
Can you please share with us just how significant the Church's contribution has been to especially space exploration and astrophysics?
Yes, very good. So the Church has been involved with celestial observation, and including telescopes, for a long time. Now, one of the most significant things would have been Gregory XIII's rather, I would say, relatively simple observation of the movement, the apparent movement of the sun across the horizon and the elliptical, in order to correct the calendar, and we still call it the Gregorian calendar. Now, it's amazing people don't think of that the Church thought it was that important to be at the very forefront of making a slight correction, which actually involved it did involve the elimination of 10 days in the calendar, but so it wasn't that slight, but it over time it was rather slight to have this calendar, what we call the Gregorian calendar, to be the one which we still use today. Now, I'd also just mention that not everyone knows that the Vatican sponsors an observatory, which is actually located now in the southern part of Arizona. And the Church continues to provide data to the international community about space. And it's a team of Jesuit scientists, not exclusively, but primarily Jesuit scientists from all over the world who are collecting and analyzing data. And one of the most important discoveries that they have made is identifying these so-called machos, very strange name, it's an acronym, but these are objects that can be detected by telescopes and indeed have been observed by the Vatican telescope that could tell us something about dark matter, which is an extremely important topic in astronomy because it seems to explain how it is that the Milky Way galaxy is held together by this mysterious matter that we cannot see, hence it's called dark matter. So people don't realize that the Church and the Vatican Observatory are keenly involved with astronomical observations and submitting data for the international community to cooperatively analyze. So it's very exciting.
To go back to the historical narrative you brought up, is the secular telling of the Galileo saga accurate?
No, this is a very good question, and I'm actually preparing an article on this right now because I've realized how widespread a misunderstanding is. Yes, the Church's response to Galileo's discoveries was not always favorable, even less so benign at times. It could be rather visceral and in a certain way violent. What I mean by that is just the reaction to his proposals. But what people fail to recognize is that this was also a theological debate. He was making theological claims and biblical claims, which in a sense encroached upon the magisterium's authority to interpret the Bible. So it was more about than just science. And it's unfortunately been boiled down to the simplification that the big bad Church basically locked up Galileo because he was insisting upon this heliocentric, kind of universe. Now, if it were that simplistic, it would mean that he had been the first one to insist on that. But of course, we have Copernicus and others. This was a long debate, even by the time that Galileo began to point his telescope to the skies and observe things, the moons of Jupiter and so on. So I really encourage listeners, there's materials out there. I don't have a single book on the tip of my tongue I could recommend, but they're often, we as Catholics are often challenged by the Galileo affair, the so-called Galileo affair, and it doesn't take really much to get up to speed on what was really at stake. And I encourage listeners to do that.
Daniel, I'm looking forward to the next piece, and I'm also looking forward to future conversations. Thank you for your time. My guest has been Daniel Gallagher, Professor of Philosophy and Literature at Ralston College. He and I have been talking about space exploration, the cosmic liturgy, and the Church's constant contribution to that field of science. Stay tuned, I'm Marcus Peter.